Hey, oh, oh. All right. Note to myself. Hello, self from the future, past. Hey guys, I'm Goose. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I posted on this one, but today we have some comic book and movie stuff to talk about.
Something's coming.
If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, then thanks so much. If you feel that I, out of the sea of other creators who make this kind of content, contributed something new or different, then please feel free to drop a like and hopefully subscribe. If you like this kind of stuff, then please stay tuned. We will be posting a lot more in the future now that my schedule's opened up a little bit. I'm your pal Goose, and let's get into the Avengers Doomsday trailer. So obviously the first thing that we notice is going to be the ever famous Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters sign, the one that is representative of Westchester, and I think other than Bam Margera is probably one of the best known references to the small town in upstate New York. This is the one seen in the now canon X-Men universe as part of the MCU by way of, I believe, Deadpool, if I'm not mistaken. This is all canon because in X-Men Days of Future Past, they were able to merge the two timelines so that X-Men First Class and X-Men, which came out, I believe, in 2000, merged their timelines so that they now share a canonical universe. And when the movie Deadpool featured that gag in which the new class closes the door, it very purposefully canonized both the 60s X-Men, the early 2000s X-Men, and Deadpool. It effectively merged all three movies' canonicities, if you will, which then was later canonized into the 616 through the TVA, and obviously Deadpool visiting the 616 to apply for a membership to the Avengers.
Something we may not be able to deter.
This plaque flashes briefly on the screen before we get a menacing, very strangely accented voice.
Before this day is done, we shall be faced with an unthinkable decision.
Here in this shot, we can see Charles Motorola Xavier, I don't know his middle name, staring out the window at what seems to be a universal-sized explosion, probably from the two universes colliding. This is a reference to the comic series Time Runs Out, in which the universes all start colliding with each other as part of a plot by the Beyonders to curb an emerging threat to the multiverse, as yet to be determined. Dun, 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 if you will. He appears to be listening with his brains to the many thousands and billions of lives that are being snuffed out by this universe, thus canceling his Apple TV subscription. This is actually the first time that I've ever heard a Latverian accent being spoken, and it sounds almost like a mixture of German and Romanian. It's very, very cool. I enjoy it very much. And this is clearly Robert Downey Jr.'s take on Dr. Doom, who we see a bit of in this next little bit. So we see a little bit of his armor and his mask, which is something that I'm actually pretty impressed with. I am very glad that they decided to stick with the chunky style of his armor. They did tone it down a little bit so that it doesn't look so boxy from the comics, but it is still somewhat, bulky. It looks like there's a human inside a suit of armor, which is really cool. It doesn't need to look like a cyborg. He doesn't need to have CG on all over his body and stuff. My hope for a lot of these movies is they're starting to lean a lot more towards using practical effects with CG to clean up the areas that they can't possibly make look realistic, and lean on that and lean on the real feel of the practical effects. It is such a great way to communicate things in a movie that you can't necessarily write in, that aren't necessarily part of the script or part of their narration. That's all as important to the storytelling as the story itself. Also, the unthinkable decision that he's referring to is a reference, again, to Time Runs Out, where he gets I think it's called the Black Cabal, or I can't really remember what the name of the group is, but it's made up of essentially Thanos and his cavalcade of clingers on. However, in this movie, it seems like it's going to be more a team made up of people that we know of who are going to go and do the unthinkable task. And my guess, if I was to speculate about this part of the plot, would be that Doctor Doom is referring to having to take out the probably X-Men universe in order to save their own, which is the Fantastic Four universe. And it's my theory that by the end of the movie, they're going to fail to save all of them. And if you are a believer of the rumors that have been going around, it is the X-Men universe, it is Doctor Doom's universe, and it is the 616 universe that are all kind of being flung into this incursion cycle or into this conflict that might result in two or all of the universes kicking the bucket. Upgraded New Avengers Tower is upgraded, as to be expected from the end of the Thunderbolts/New Avengers movie. It looks pretty sleek and stylish, I gotta say.
I've fought with many warriors in my time. They were far stronger than all of us put together. And they died.
And the next narration that we hear is from none other than Christopher James Hemsworth himself, Thor Odinson, talking about fighting with strong warriors. I don't think that he's referencing the Warriors 5 or whatever the hell it is. I don't think he's referencing his old friends who died from Hela. I think that he is referencing like Namor. And so I think what's happening is this is him coming to 616 to his old friends after trying to go, universe, not necessarily universe hopping, but he tries to go world hopping in order to find out what's going on with Love, and so that he can like try and figure out how to save her. She's come down with some illness, universe sickness maybe, because Eternity, who resides within her essentially, is dying because of the incursions, and so he's gonna have to try and save her, and so he's gonna try and like go to the heroes that he knows of. In the first Avengers Infinity War movie, it starts with Thanos attacking the ship that Thor and Loki and all of the rescued people from Asgard are hanging out on, and it results in a cataclysmic level of depowering for Thor and a complete dismantling of the Hulk. Two entities that we saw as world smashing, as like the most powerful on the Avengers, who are now laid low. And this is sort of like a show of power. This is a show of force. This is us seeing how incredibly destructive and powerful Doctor Doom is in or Thanos, as in the first Infinity War movie. This is him, I think, coming to the 616 and regaling them with his tales of multiverse Doctor Doomage, and he's about to tell them, the whole Thanos is coming, but like on a whole different level. This is probably after the X-Men universe is destroyed. This is probably after the Fantastic Four universe is destroyed, and he's like out of options, and they've got to stop. I'm not sure. I'm guessing that there's like maybe another incursion that's about to happen. 838 must be thrown in there somehow. I think they're only going to limit themselves to a few worlds, so I don't know if they're necessarily going to do that. There's an impending doom, so to speak, that they must now handle, and I think the threat of the X-Men is more of a misdirect or more of a secondary issue to the overall issue of the incursions, and Doom is going to use the chaos that ensues to solidify his power and create Battleworld. In this moment, this is Thor talking to his old friends and his, the people that we see in the movies, our home universe, about the danger of Doom. So when we see later on in the trailer, when he interacts with Doom, this will be way earlier on in the movie, presumably at the X-Men's last stand. Always looking good with the costume design for the Fantastic Four, still keeping somewhat of that retro spaceman look, just instead of it being bright orange or red like all of the Lost in Space or 60s gonzo sci-fi style things were. This is more of a blue and teal seafoam, like I'm in the ocean kind of thing, but they come in with Thor, and this is kind of what hints at me thinking that they have come over. Now, if we were to speculate, I would say that every character that you could potentially assume was there fighting with the X-Men while the universes were incurged has died. And that means Simu Liu's character, Shang-Chi, that means Gambit, that means all the X-Men, that means Charles Xavier, that means Magneto, that means Mystique, that means probably Yelena Belova, any of the Thunderbolts that had gone over at the time. This is not, and And I have a feeling that this would be like, maybe we're talking Act 1 Heartbreaker here. We don't know, but it's entirely possible that this, you know, the people that were over there, like Monica Rambeau, potentially Shuri and Namor, as you can probably speculate later on in the trailer. I'm not entirely certain. We have to try and make sense of it together, but there's going to be plenty of time to figure it out. So stick around and stay tuned. All right.
They died facing enemies and threats that scared me far less than this one.
So in this moment, when Chris Helms Deepworth talks about they died, I honestly think that he's referring to Namor and Shuri, who, when we saw them in that clip, that was the 4 different clips that they released like a few months back, they were meeting with the Fantastic Four. So they all had to be in the same place at some point. And a lot of the speculation was that they were actually in the void at the end of time, which I don't believe is the case. If they are in the void at the end of time, it's entirely possible that Doctor Doom has somehow taken technology from the TVA and thus pruned them in some kind of battle or some really quick conflict that was just over super speedily. Or this, as evidenced later on in the trailer, is just some different location. It's just some like location that's important for the plot. Maybe Talokan, maybe somewhere in Wakanda. Either way, it's surrounded by a wall of water, which makes me believe that either Namor or his people are keeping the water at bay, like this is a place out in the ocean, or it's in an inlet or something, somewhere that allows them to find refuge from something. I'm not quite sure. I think Thor is talking about the powerful people who he had fought with who had died. I think he's talking about powerful heroes. Now, call me crazy, but is that looking like a little more than just a passive brooding glance from Namor? Does it kind of look like he might be knocked out or unconscious or maybe even passed away in this shot? It really would make sense narratively to take out a really powerful chess piece in the very beginning of the movie, so maybe it could be like some kind of an assassination. I think maybe this is just him being brooding, like he's just doing that like I'm staring down my nose at you, I'm angry kind of thing, you know? It's a little low. Maybe he's just really playing it up, but it's a little low, and it could potentially be, because if they're going to pull spears on them, it could be that he was somehow like able to be assassinated from afar, and they're now springing into action because they don't know what happened. They have no idea. They think it's these people from Wakanda, perhaps, or they just snuck in and are trying to get help from Namor and his people, and that could potentially be why they've drawn spears on them, because they're suspicious, because they're coming to ask for help, and they said they're gonna like leave them alone or whatever at the end of Wakanda Forever. Makes sense. Either one could be true, but I think it's more saucy if he somehow was assassinated and taken off the board way early on, and you know, that team is just nerfed even more, and it's just like earlier than this is when all that other stuff with him happened. I don't know. It's just speculation at this point for me. So here I was trying to place where this shot might be coming from, but I can't figure it out for the life of me. It looks like one of those Greek or Roman statue type things, which would put it maybe at the pantheon of gods, but I also don't know why they would ever bring that back from Love and Thunder. It wouldn't make any sense to me. I'm desperate to know who that statue is of. This is potentially a different universe, and I want to know which one. And this debris on the ground really speaks to me, but I don't know where it could be coming from. It looks like it was a structure that was knocked over rather than the ruins of something that he's standing in the middle of. So we'd have to know. On closer inspection, breaking news. Wah, 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 wah. Breaking news. This has just come to my attention. It appears as though the pile of rubble that is on the right side of the screen to Chris Jehoshaphat, that the figure that is to the right on our screen of Chris Jehoshaphat Hemsworth's Thor Organonson is actually the body of a Sentinel, perhaps? It looks like a robotic body of some sort. Now, there could be every possibility that Doom is running around with his is comic accurate Doom bots, but instead of looking like live mile decoys of Doom himself, they could just be big Sentinel looking things. Perhaps that could be what he uses to attack the X-Men compound, which is where all the Sentinel things were that we saw before, or it could just be plain old Sentinels. Who knows? But this does look like the body of a Sentinel having been defeated by either Thor or his counterparts, which tells me that this statue could potentially be somewhere in the X Manor and it's just complete rubble around him. And then we have more purposefully hidden detail in the overall scene to make sure that you cannot place where this is. There's a statue off center that looks to be giving a Michael Jackson to the viewer, with Doom standing just underneath it. And off to the left in the glow of Stormbreaker, you can see what looks to be the base of another statue, but you cannot, it looks like a Socrates sort of thing, like the bottom of a robe, and then with some gnarled debris on the far left. The sky is giving Abeloth vibes, but I do not believe that he's going to be involved. Was that his name, Abeloth? No, that's Star Wars. Let's just call him Abeloth for now. Abeloth! And then a tree. And then we get the X-Men mansion get splody-splode. And here we get to see ex-Buffy alum James Marsters showing up again as his comic book accurate character Hawkeye. I'm just kidding. You all know that this is the GOAT, James Marston, who played X-Men member Cyclops back in the Doomsday in the early 2000s film. He is by far one of the best representations of Cyclops on screen, and I think pretty much anyone is going to agree with that, being that there have only been one or two others. That kind of makes it easy to determine. So congratulations, Cyclops. So I don't know how many of y'all are power scalers out there, but if we saw Shang-Chi, a guy who had to do a Kamehameha to an otherworldly eldritch entity that saps souls from the living, who had been around for thousands of years, who, if you read the comics, was on par with Mephisto himself, potentially even more powerful, if he, using his 10 rings, cannot defeat Gambit handily, we are seeing a huge shift in MCU power balances, which means that Shang-Chi has effectively either been nerfed to not be able to have the level of power that he had in his own introductory film, or the members of the X-Men universe are so extremely powerful that they could very easily take out Shang-Chi using his 10 rings. Pretty gosh darn crazy. Now, I'm sure that there's an eagle-eyed viewer out there who's going to be able to tell me what the 414-620-7014012220 one of those means to the greater MCU, whether it's a comic book reference or some Easter egg of some other sort. But now we've got a code to follow, ladies and gentlemen. The other more sad thing that this does is indicate that the leaks that we've heard may be true. Spoilers ahead if you don't want to hear. According to most recent leaks, Loki is going to die in this. Though I don't think that that's going to be a severe blow to anyone who is anywhere familiar with how time runs out works, because there's probably going to be a lot more people who aren't going to be coming back until the universe is rebooted. So bear with us, bear with the people who know, as we start to shed tears over the potential loss of beloved heroes. Also, I believe that the person who's holding this card is Steve, because I see a wedding ring. That's really the only reason I think that. I have no other indicator that it is Steve.
Everything that they sacrifice will be for nothing if we do not stand together.
This is the scene I was talking about, where I believe it looks like the void at the end of time, though I don't really have any confirmation of that. All I have is a desert-looking area, a Wakandan ship, the previous 4 shorts that they released, and that's about it. This wall of water, it makes me feel like I'm wrong, though. Now, if you can't make out who it is on the right, when their faces are just a tiny little bit obscured, that is has Ghost to the very far right, I'm guessing, New Falcon in the middle, and Winter Soldier accompanying with Sue Storm and Thing, respectively. We have M'Baku and Shuri with the Dora Milaje on the left. This is clearly when they're meeting for the first time or when they're striking up a deal. I'm not quite sure. I don't think that this is in the wake of their ship landing. I can't imagine. It lands, what, in the ocean somewhere, and then they have to be rescued by Namor, who is teamed up with people from Wakanda, who they then create this wall of water so that they don't drown or something. I'm not quite sure how this series of events would play out, but it could just be after maybe like a fight or a dust-up of some sort. I'm not quite sure. As I'm sure that most of you are expecting at this point, there's clearly going to be dust-ups every time the heroes meet each other because they're all kind of unsure who they are. And even going as far as the X-Men universe, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be enemies throughout, and I think that they're going to end up killing the X-Men's universe. But in traditional fashion, when the heroes along the 616 who don't yet know each other meet up, they're probably going to have dust-ups, just like there have been in every single Marvel Avengers movie. When the heroes all meet each other, everyone always thinks that they're villains straight away, and they always got to fight and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, in the Age of Ultron, Speedy and Lady Witch were both, you know, bad guys until the very end. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe this could be the case for the X-Men. Maybe the X-Men could, like some of them could survive and try to come over on a life raft to make it over to the 616, to make it onto Battle World. Who knows? At this point, I'm pretty sure it's only going to be a very small handful of very key players who make it to Battle World. I think everyone's just going to kind of be reborn there, and then we're going to kind of have like twisted versions of the people that we saw perish in Secret Wars proper, Part 1 and Part 2. You might see some evil people that were good to start with.
Put aside your petty squabbles. Presume nothing except this. If you return.
Now, I don't want to distress anyone, but Yelena being here means that she's probably on the slate for the schedule, for the task, for the chopping block for the characters who probably aren't going to make it back into the 616 before the X-Men universe goes kaboosh. However, Pedro Pascal being here also tells me that the moments that we see surrounded by the wall of water are probably going to be after they repel Doom near the end of the movie. But I don't know. That's just speculation again, because if all of these characters, not all of these characters, if somehow now Pedro Pascal being here makes me scared for something as well. I believe, oh my god. So while recording this, I have come to a couple of different conclusions. Pedro Pascal being in the battle at the X-Men mansion tells me that if this universe gets exploded before anyone can make it back, there's every chance that he might end up having to sacrifice himself, which is why he's not in that shot of the thing with M'Baku and Shuri and the new Avengers. My guess is also that Yelena perishes as well. I'm thinking anyone who's trapped on this universe, when we see Charles looking up through that glass and see that explosion, I think they're all gone. They're all toast. Anyone who's in the universe at that time, and I think it's going to end up being Herbie, it's going to be Yelena, it's going to obviously be Mystique, Gambit, Shang-Chi. It would make sense to remove key players from the board early on before you even get to Secret Wars, because otherwise you're going to be able to like just Captain Marvel this out of existence. You know, you're going to be able to Captain Marvel the whole thing, which is that she could just go in and like punch Thanos and like take the gauntlet off and shit. You know, like if she had just done that, or if Ant-Man had done the butt thing, if you know, you know, then gosh darn it, we would have been so much better off earlier on. But this kind of makes me scared for the potentiality that Yelena and Pedro Richards are going to make it through this movie. But you best prepare yourself. I think there's going to be a lot of broken hearts and a lot of tears by the rolling credits. Now, because of the prosthetics, I can't really tell, is this Rebecca Remains? Mystique, because it doesn't look like Jennifer Lawrence, but I could be mistaken. I haven't seen Jennifer Lawrence recently, and I have not seen Rebecca Romijn in since the last time I saw her play Mystique, probably. But this design looks pretty good. This is sort of, I think, a more modern take, not modern. When I say modern, I mean the year 2000s as opposed to the 2020s, which is, the year of our Lord now, 2026. I'm old, but this definitely looks like a design that happened a little bit around the Krakoa era, maybe Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals era, which I believe this is taking beats from. So it's very cool, very classic, and it calls back to the source material pretty directly, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that. I kind of like that a movie is willing to go there, is willing to take the design choices and make them comic accurate. I really like that's what I really enjoy about the Gunn universe right now. He's doing comic accurate things. Naysayers be damned, fans be damned. It's his own, it's whatever he wants to put out there, and gosh darn it, it's nice. I like it. I enjoy the Superman, I enjoy Supergirl, I enjoy all that stuff. Also on the chopping block is Ian McKellen's Magneto, because obviously you do not want a mutant that powerful making it through to Battleworld, because then he's just gonna wipe the floor with Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom has a magical, although metal, suit of armor. Also, I don't know if I've ever shared this with anyone, but I believe that X-Men's alumnuses Charles Xavier and Magnus, aka Eric, aka Magneto, have always had a bit of an underlying romantic tension. Yes, sir. They are friends in the most fraternal sense. I think they bangin'. I think they banged. I think they're friends. I think they're friends with benefits. Don't at me. Also, don't be alarmed, but I think Ant-Man and Cassie are both going to get wiped out when this universe dies. I don't know how they got there. I don't know why they're there, but I think it's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to be nice.
He will return as brothers and sisters. But mark my words.
In the comics, Johnny definitely does not end up doing too good in the wake of Time Runs Out. He becomes the Sun. Yeah, the Sun, which also would account for the fact that he's not there in that shot, which I believe to be at the end of the movie, which is at the void at the end of time, where Shuri's, where M'Baku is talking to Thing. We don't see Franklin, we don't see Reed, and we don't see Johnny. So I think that this shot where he's hugging potentially Franklin could be either before he sacrifices himself or before the universe goes away, which sounds dark, I know, but Franklin is essentially a god, so potentially he could do something about this as it's happening. Sam being in the X-Men mansion at this shot could be a little bit of a misdirect. It could be that they're not trying to set up that this is the X-Men mansion at all in the first place, and simply that the X-Men somehow made it to the Sanctum Sanctorum. However, I don't think this is the Sanctum. It looks too much like the X-Men mansion from the 2000s X-Men movies, so I don't think that this is them having crossed over. I think this is the new Avengers in the X-Men mansion, and they have been joined by Sam's Avengers, which means that Sam might also be on the chopping block as well. However, what I think is going to end up happening is that after a dust up with Doom, they're probably going to be able to get some of them onto a life raft and over into the 616, which is how we're going to end up with X-Men in the 616 and all the events that are setting us up to get further into Secret Wars story arcs. Essentially, this is us picking sides and dividing everything up, taking the powerful players off the board, making sure that the worlds are ready to be smushed together into Battleworld by Doom. I can already tell that this is going to be a beautifully, visually, cinematic, masterpiecefully, very well-designed movie, and I think the visuals look great. Even like the special effects on everybody's powers and the things that really make them stand apart from each other is very well thought out. Obviously, you know, in likely MCU fashion. This, as you can probably tell, is what happens when Cyclops turns off his little dial inhibitor thing that allows him to use the full force of his kinetic blast. It's very cool when it happens in the comics, and it is very cool when it happens in the video games, because that usually means your opponent is toast. And it's great again to see Buffy alum James Marsters get to play Spike once again. This is definitely making me believe that since this is occurring in the ruins of some building with sentinels walking by, obviously in the back of the shot we can see the feet. Don't get excited, boys. Cyclops is obviously angry or upset about something. Someone key probably just bit the dust, or this is definitely the moment. Or this is the moment where the universe is gonna slip this mortal coil, and so he is crying out in despair. Whatever the case, this is going to be an epic shot, and these ruins are clearly in the X Mansion, and this is clearly after the X Mansion has somehow been destroyed, which is why I think Thor coming in was the first attempt at them stopping Doom, which happens again early in the movie. If my speculations are to be correct. So these are just moments that I think are happening towards the end of the movie where they are trying to solidify this rising wall of water. I don't know what makes it stay up. I think, does Sue just kind of have to hold that this entire time? I hope not, but it stays up somehow enough for them to have a meaningful discussion and for people to get onto, I guess, Wakandan ships or something. I'm not quite sure at this point, but this looks to be towards the end of the movie. So I don't think at this point Doctor Doom is going to do any sort of rough and tumble, dust 'em up action. I think all he's doing is observing what's going on. I think he's maybe set these things into motion, and this could be the moment where he's betraying the team that he has assembled in order to get this whatever source of power, whatever save whatever universe, or whatever, achieve whatever end he has set out to achieve, and has then they've fulfilled their purpose and now he no longer needs them, and so he's turning against them. Or he's been the menace all along, nobody knew what the menace was, and then they've encountered him while he's trying to either save his universe or destroy the other universe so that he can then save his universe. But the through line for this entire thing is that Doom is trying to save his world. That's his whole thing.
We're going to need a miracle.
Hey, pal.
It's not possible.
I mean, obviously, the rumors have been swirling around that Chris Evans was coming back. He wasn't on the director's chair march or crawl or whatever you want to call it. Of course he wasn't. He wasn't going to show up. He was just rumored. Obviously, he's coming back. And if you're, again, believing the rumors, then he has a big integral part to play in this whole entire Doomsday scenario. And, I, for one, am glad. I wish that we wouldn't really rely so much on the name of the celebrity to sell a movie, especially because they cost so much nowadays. I'm way in favor of recasting for important roles, but also, I gotta admit, I'm happy to see Chris Evans coming back. So, what? You gotta take the bad with the good sometimes, right? Right, Chris? Am I right or am I right? And when I'm right, I'm right. Also, I don't know what the hell Infinity Vision is, but I'm intrigued. So if I was to give my thoughts on the Avengers Doomsday trailer, I'd say it's pretty early to be able to tell much of anything from the more intricate details of the plot based solely on the trailer itself. It's really exciting to see. The visuals look amazing, and I'm so excited to see the Avengers back on screen again for this other wrap-up of the next arc in the MCU's storyline. It felt great. It felt like it was a slog in some parts. It felt like some of the movies were a bit in misstep territory, definitely some of the series, but so far Avengers Doomsday is looking like it's going to be the next big Endgame or Infinity War. It looks like it's definitely the Russos returning to form in the MCU, telling stories, making things work, getting on the horn, pulling some strings, being real shakers and movers, anywho, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out, and if you like breakdowns of trailers and TV shows, I'm going to be doing X-Men 97 next. I've got an episode coming out about the 4 episodes that have released, and I'll be doing one this week about the one coming out this week. Crazy, right? Also, tune into the main channel if you like live streams and longer form content, and the other channel if you like short form clips. I've been Goose. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. It really helps a lot. Let's grow this community together, all right? Let's do it. Thank you, and bye-bye.